Only individuals of noble heritage are permitted to reside in this house. My mother-in-law's words lingered in the balmy Caribbean air like a poisonous mist. I observed her expression contort into that recognizable smirk. The one I had endured alongside her for the previous 5 years. My husband Thomas nodded in assent. His expression reflected his mother's disdain perfectly. "Dear, I believe it is. It is advisable that you depart," he stated, without even deigning to meet my gaze. His anger palpable this time. The emotions building within me were distinct. Devoid of the typical pain and humiliation that accompanied their incessant presence, it was not demeaning, rather. It was something profound that elicited a curvature of my lips into a smile as I addressed the security guard positioned discreetly by the door. Requesting their assistance in escorting them from my premises, the expression of astonishment on their faces was invaluable. Thomas's jaw fell, and his mother's demeanor was flawless, the Botoxed forehead surprisingly developed wrinkles, while I observed their eyes flicker to the elegant brass plaque behind me, which displays my family name. The name that graced every structure in this opulent resort complex. "Cannot be," my mother-in-law stammered, her exquisitely manicured fingers grasping her pearl necklace. "You are merely a small-town girl from Minnesota. Your father was a carpenter who made investments. I wisely constructed an empire," and reprimanded her, my voice calm and clear. "Did you? I never questioned my insistence on holding the wedding here. I aim to afford you the benefit of the doubt to ascertain if you may accept me for my identity rather than my possessions." The security guard advanced. Thomas, exhibiting professionalism and politeness, extended his hand towards my arm. However, I retreated, disengaging my wedding ring in a singular, flowing motion for the elaborate wedding you have been organizing for your son and his partner girlfriend. I observed their guilty expressions. I possess something extraordinary in retrospect. I should have recognized the indications, the clandestine phone conversations and the late hours at the office. I saw the subtle changes in Thomas's behavior. But I had been too occupied managing my family's economic empire in secrecy. I hoped that one day my husband's family would transcend their biases and embrace me for my true self. On that day, while standing in the lobby of my flagship resort, I finally comprehended that certain individuals would remain unaltered. The fundamental question was why I had devoted so much time attempting to alter myself to satisfy them while they were escorted out of my phone. My assistant informed me that everything was prepared for the forthcoming events. Thomas and his mother were unaware. They were unaware that they had just begun their ideal world of social ascension and deceit, which was unraveling, collapsing, and I would observe each instant, but I first needed to resort to action and a truth to disclose. One that would undermine the basis of their meticulously crafted social order. The hierarchy, which had long denigrated the carpenter's daughter, was about to learn a valuable lesson in authenticity, class and respect. What they were unaware of was that this was merely the inception of the wedding they were orchestrating behind my back. The return would occur, however, not as anticipated. I had something significantly more intriguing planned for them on a gorgeous day. I saw from the window of my penthouse office as Thomas and his mother were taken to their destination, awaiting a vehicle for 5 years while feigning inferiority. All due to my beliefs that love entailed embracing individuals as they truly were. What a fool I had been regarding my father's perspective. The words resonated in my mind. Never allow someone to diminish your worth. Sophie, we construct not merely resorts, but futures. He commenced with a modest carpentry enterprise and converted it into a hospitality empire via unwavering drive and exceptional commercial acumen. Upon his passing 3 years ago, I inherited not only his legacy but also his vision. On the day we met at a charity banquet, I believed I had seen someone who recognized my true self. He was charming and appeared benevolent, exhibited sincere interest in my thoughts and aspirations, yet I refrained from disclosing anything regarding my family's enterprise, to be cherished for my intrinsic qualities rather than my financial status. Is a profoundly ironic outcome. B.M. Reynolds, my assistant, Sarah, entered and stated that she had the files. You suggested that I turn from the window to compose myself. Show me what she has laid out. Numerous files on my desk contained images, email transcripts, and financial documents, statements exhaustively proving Thomas's treachery and his affair with Jessica, his mother's preferred choice. The wedding that they were preparing behind my back for my daughter-in-law had been ongoing for 8 months for the upcoming spring at this particular resort. People have already made deposits under several identities. Sarah elucidated while gesturing. Mrs. Lancaster has been collaborating with her personal wedding planner for several weeks over a series of transactions. I could not refrain from laughing at the audacity of my mother-in-law. She had always been astute. But this time her machinations would be her downfall. Have you contacted our lawyers regarding the prenuptial agreements?
Yes. I have. The infidelity clause is advantageous for us. Although Sarah expressed hesitation. What is the reason for this? They intend to challenge your ownership of the resort network. Mrs. Lancaster has been compiling evidence. The allegations suggest that your father's original investment originated from dubious sources,
causing my blood to run cold. Indeed. That elucidated the recent burglary at our ancestral residence and the enigmatic inquiries on my father's circumstances. My early business partners were not merely going to abandon me, they were attempting to obliterate anything associated with my father. I approached the little safe concealed behind a painting in my office. Inside was a weathered leather journal containing my father's meticulous record of every transaction with every investment and every step in constructing his empire. He had anticipated that soon someone would recognize it.
One may question his legacy. Sarah should contact Michael at the appropriate time in an interview.
They asserted that the world should be informed of the authentic narrative regarding how a carpenter constructed one of the most significant. Investigate any pertinent information regarding profitable resort chains in the Caribbean. Since I have paused, an idea that is developing in my thoughts regarding Jessica's family.
It seems that Thomas and his mother are not the sole individuals concealing secrets.
Especially since Sarah departed, I opened my father's journal, tracing my fingers over his recognizable handwriting.
Having remained silent about my true identity for an extended period, I believed it was the appropriate course of action. Nevertheless,
I have now come to the realization that my quiet merely facilitated their prejudice amidst the savagery.
My phone vibrated with a message from Thomas. We need to talk. This isn't.
What are your thoughts?
It aligned precisely with my expectations. And while he and his mother strategized their subsequent actions,
likely concealed within their exorbitantly priced beachside villa,
they remained oblivious to my discovery in their meticulously concealed history. The sun was descending over the Caribbean,
adorning the sky with resplendent hues. For USB disk containing orange and pink was located at one of our other resorts. Facts that would render today's revelation a trivial scandal. Thomas's family has endured for generations, establishing their reputation as aristocratic old money. I laughed at the thought of the discovered a document among my father's old archives. It was time to demonstrate what true authority included,
as opposed to that which is purchased. With embezzled funds and counterfeit titles. Yet the type was constructed via diligent effort and integrity. Yet I first had a wedding to attend. The plan is no longer mine.
But it would undoubtedly be an event that no one would forget. Disregarding the subsequent morning following Thomas and his mother's mortifying departure, I remained seated in my home office, examined the files compiled by Sarah, with each page uncovering an additional layer of deceit that unsettled me. The Lancaster family's meticulously crafted mask was starting to deteriorate, revealing a more unsightly reality beneath than I had anticipated. Your father's former associate is online. Sarah informed me over the intercom that Mr. Davidson was presented as urgent. James Davidson. I had not encountered that name in years,
as he had been having been my father's closest companion throughout their early relationship. Before a rift separated them, I grabbed the phone, my heart pounding, racing. Sophie.
His gruff voice evoked images of summer barbecues during business discussions at our former kitchen table. I learned of the events that transpired at the resort. It is time for you to be informed of the truth for the next hour. I listened as James recounted a narrative about Thomas's family. James built the Lancasters' noble heritage on a falsehood, leaving me breathless. That commenced 3 generations prior with Thomas's grandfather. They were not established wealth but rather con artists who had mastered the skill of marrying into affluent families and gradually extracting their wealth.
Your father deduced.
James explained that this was why I left. He wanted to reveal them.
But I didn't, fearful of their links.
Sophie considered the USB associated with the dangerous ones. Did the drive concealed in my father's old briefcase have any connection to his accident?
The stillness around this matter is palpable. The other end of the connection was overwhelmingly silent. I cannot substantiate it,
James ultimately remarked. But your father was nearing the revelation of their entire organization. The breakdown in his vehicle was excessively fortuitous.
My hands trembled as I accessed my laptop and retrieved the file I had discovered in my father's encrypted folder. It contained comprehensive documentation of the Lancaster family's endeavors throughout the last 50 years, illustrating a history of fractured marriages,
depleted bank accounts and devastated lives. Why did you not inform me of this prior to my marriage to Thomas?
I inquired.
Striving to maintain composure, the wrath in my speech stems from a vow your father compelled me to make.
Allowing you to live your life, he believed Thomas could be distinct. James exhaled deeply, expressing remorse. Sophie, I should have notified you, after concluding the call.
I summoned Sarah to my office. I require you to reach out to each bride who has reserved our resorts for the upcoming year to propose a substantial upgrade, relocate all of them to our other properties and maintain the main resort vacant for the upcoming spring wedding, requested by Sarah, raising an eyebrow. Maybe. But I want to provide the Lancasters precisely they desire, an elaborate stage for their ideal societal wedding.
And then I grinned, contemplating the documents in my possession, eager to provide them their due recognition. Later that day, I got an unanticipated guest. Jessica's younger sister Rachel stood in my office,
observing, apprehensive yet resolute.
I am aware of my sister's and Thomas's actions, she exclaimed,
and I understand what transpired with the Morrison family last year and the Blackwoods prior. Their tendency is to identify a wealthy individual and marry them.
I cannot allow them to repeat their actions. I have scrutinized her meticulously. Why are they doing this? You are conveying this to me because you are distinct. You are the first individual who has resisted.
She brandished a phone in her palms. I possess recorded discussions between Thomas and Jessica. They are orchestrating a scheme more detrimental than mere abandonment. They covet all that you possess, including the resorts and your reputation. As I listened to the tapes, a shudder coursed down my spine. Thomas's voice was cold and calculated. He is nothing like the individual I believed I had wed. They were not merely intending to divorce me but also to implicate me unjustly for financial fraud involving the use of medical documents to create the appearance of embezzlement from my own company.
Thank you. Rachel, I stated that following the conclusion of the last recording. This alters everything. While observing the sunset from my office in the evening, I received another message from Thomas. Let us address this matter maturely. Tomorrow's meal will be just for us, I replied succinctly,
indicating the Blue Room. 20:00. What Thomas was unaware of was that the Blue Room,
our most elite restaurant,
had been my father's favorite. We outfitted each table with concealed recording devices from the outset, using it as a venue for finalizing transactions and uncovering fraud. We will take precautions to protect our esteemed guests from corporate espionage tomorrow night in case Thomas tries to manipulate me.
One final occasion.
Although this time I shall be prepared, I will assume the role as I readied myself for bed that night. I received one last message. Exercise caution with the unidentified number. They have a history of similar actions, and their most recent victim did not survive to recount the experience. I gazed at the letter, my blood running cold. Now,
this was not merely about preserving my family's legacy, but rather about survival. In the Blue Room was tranquil that evening, precisely as I had orchestrated it. Evacuated the restaurant of all patrons, retaining just the indispensable staff, each individually scrutinized and committed to my interests for years. Thomas arrived punctually at 8.
Attired in the navy suit I had selected, he smiled, acknowledging the irony of the gift I had given him for our previous anniversary.
Sophie, that once enchanting grin, which had previously caused my heart to flutter, now induces a sense of discomfort.
You are gorgeous. I selected a simple black dress that belonged to my mother, since it seemed appropriate to wear something that held sentimental value, exhibited authentic familial heritage while confronting an individual whose existence was constructed on falsehoods. Let us forego the formalities, Thomas, I stated as I took my seat.
We are both aware of the purpose of our meeting. He requested a costly wine,
specifically from my collection. He reclined in his chair, acknowledging that the entire matter has spiraled beyond control. You have always been emotional,
my dear,
but this theatrical exhibition is beneath your dignity. I recalled Rachel's recordings of James's cautions on my father's dubious accident, causing my grip to tighten. Over my water glass, however,
my voice stayed composed.
Please provide information regarding the Morrison family. And the little twitch in his left eye was the sole clue that I had surprised him.
I am unaware of what you are referring to. Elizabeth. Morrison, at 32,
Inherited a series of luxury hotels from her father and married a charming man named James Lancaster.
Your uncle
Caused her to lose everything within a year. Her vehicle was discovered at the base of a cliff 3 months later. He dismissed the ancient family history with a shrug, however. I observed his knuckles blanching around his wine glass.
Which is quite extraneous to us, thus. Let us discuss another topic. More recent.
Such as the prenuptial agreement your mother's attorneys are attempting to nullify, or the documents you have been. He is orchestrating a scheme to implicate me in embezzlement, this time. He could not conceal his astonishment as our gazes intersected across the table. The first instance I observed the authentic Thomas.
He appeared cool, calculating, and unexpectedly perilous. You have been occupied, he remarked gently. But you are engaging in a game you do not comprehend.
Sophie.
Some matters are preferable.
Abandoned.
Akin to my father's mishap.
The words lingered in the atmosphere between us.
Thomas. He took a deliberate drink of wine.
Scrutinizing me over the rim of his glass. Accidents occur. Your father was aware of the risks associated with construction,
as well as other pertinent factors regarding your family and the events with the authentic Lancasters that captured his interest. What are you referring to? I retrieved a solitary image from my purse. It was aged, with yellowed edges, depicting a group of individuals standing together in front of a mansion. Your grandfather is not present in this photograph, Thomas.
But the authentic Charles, following the fire that tragically claimed the lives of the entire family. Lancaster's identity became appropriate.
Thomas's complexion drained of color. Where did you? My father was meticulous in his studies. He believed in understanding those with whom he interacted. I paused.
Allowing that the significance of my statements resonates, he also endorsed numerous concealed backups in locations your family would never consider. The server arrived with our appetizers.
Yet Thomas scarcely acknowledged his, with his gaze riveted on the photograph. He finally inquired.
What do you desire?
I want you to comprehend that every document you have fabricated and every falsehood you have uttered.
I possess evidence of every strategy you and Jessica devised. It is all available at this moment, securely stored. Nonetheless,
should something occur to me, regardless of the nature, it will be released publicly. Disclose all. You are deceiving. Although his tone was devoid of assurance.
I extracted He used his phone to play a brief audio recording of his own voice outlining schemes to implicate me in financial crimes. His expression changed from pale to ashen. It is merely a sample. I stated this while halting the recording. I had hours of material. Increased engagement of your mother influences Jessica's role.
So here is the situation to proceed. You will sign the divorce papers prepared by my attorneys. And you will accompany your mother Jessica, and I will leave the resort and country. Or I will finish whatever I need to. My father initiated every fraud,
every identity theft,
and every dubious death when the truth comes to light. How long do you think your noble family will survive?
The expression he directed at me was unadulterated animosity. You are unaware of your actions. Individuals implicated in this matter will not hesitate to escalate the situation. Another incident occurred. I grinned icily.
Do you genuinely believe I have not implemented safeguards at that moment? My phone vibrated with a message from Sarah. Everything is in position and ready. I rose,
adjusting my dress. Additionally, observe the glass. Thomas has pulled into the parking lot below. Police vehicles approached discreetly with their lights extinguished as we saw the policemen commenced assuming jobs around the building. Insurance I elucidated. In addition, they are highly interested in recent evidence regarding the death of Elizabeth Morrison.
Your uncle. They may have evaded capture at that time, but forensic technology has significantly advanced. He murmured.
No,
Thomas.
I am
the businesswoman whom you failed to acknowledge.
Observed as I approached the door and then hesitated. The wedding place you and Jessica were arranging remains reserved for you. I insist on this arrangement. As I exited the blue room,
I heard him yell my name.
But I did not look back. Allow him to speculate about my intentions. Let him be concerned about what other knowledge I may possess.
For the reality is that I was merely beginning. I slept little that night. The adrenaline from my meeting with Thomas kept my thoughts in a state of turmoil.
Repeating the events, every micro-expression and covert threat from dawn occurred when I was in my home office analyzing security footage from the blue room reveals Thomas's response to my references to Elizabeth Morrison. Miss Reynolds' voice Sarah K. emanated from the intercom.
Disturbing me.
Investigator Wilson has arrived. I anticipated this visit as the detective entered my office despite appearing fatigued. She remained vigilant as she investigated cold cases related to dubious accidents inside affluent households for years.
When I approached her department with evidence related to Elizabeth Morris's death,
she eagerly seized the opportunity. She stated that the recording from last night is pretty intriguing for the purpose of reopening the investigation. As I settled into a chair,
my focus was captivated by what we discovered in Elizabeth Morrison's abandoned vehicle. Forward.
Did you discover identical brake line damage as that of your father's vehicle? It appears too similar to be a coincidence. Produced a tablet displaying photos. We also discovered remnants of a material that was not there when the original investigation was done to demonstrate that the brake lines were intentionally severed. The situation has intensified. Can you identify the perpetrator?
Not at this moment. With her phone vibrated,
indicating a notification. Her complexion paled as she read the message. Mrs. Reynolds,
we must relocate you to a secure location immediately. What is amiss? Thomas's uncle James Lancaster, who married Elizabeth Morrison, has just escaped from house detention, and your mother-in-law was observed seeing him yesterday, which sent a shudder down my spine.
James Davidson's cautions on perilous associations rapidly became tangible within hours of my settling into a secure suite at another property, fortified by the extra security that Sarah had organized for all.
Resort operations will proceed seamlessly while I'm absent. But something felt amiss when my phone rang, indicating Rachel and Jessica's involvement. Sister Sophie, thank God you are safe.
She sounded breathless. They are preparing. I overheard Jessica conversing with Thomas's mother, during which they referenced a contingency plan. The resort's opening celebration next month will feature the annual gala,
our most significant event of the year,
attracting hundreds of attendees. International media coverage and the governor were among the guests. I discreetly mentioned the governor consistently attends Sophie, nonetheless. Rachel's voice diminished as she mentioned finding something. Old photographs in my parents' attic depict my father with Thomas's uncle from 2 decades ago. I doubt my sister possesses them. My association with Thomas was coincidental. I believe our families have collaborated for generations. The components began to align. The intricate scheme was not solely focused on my finances or the resorts. They were pursuing something more: greater political affiliations,
societal impact,
and authority that transcended the superficial. I accessed the guest list for the gala on my laptop, which includes 3 senators among the confirmed attendees. Tech millionaires and numerous other prominent targets constitute the ideal quarry. An opportunity for scam artists who specialized in penetrating affluent households. Rachel, please email me those images and provide all recollections on conversations between your parents. As I concluded my call with the Lancasters,
Sarah entered the room abruptly, exclaiming,
Sophie,
you need to.
She presented me with a tablet displaying a news article, the headline causing a chill to run through me and prompting numerous queries. Documents regarding the origins of Reynolds Resort empire indicate potential illicit actions. They had progressed more swiftly than I anticipated, immediately initiating their slander campaign. Nevertheless, they committed one significant error. The stolen records contained information that only an individual involved in Elizabeth Morrison's killing would possess. Contact Detective Wilson on the expeditious acquisition of a warrant based on my knowledge of the location. Material regarding the perpetrator of Elizabeth Morrison's murder can be located alongside the storage of all other related material. The crime they did elicited a bitter smile from me. They retained trophies. The investigator remained silent for a minute. The true mastermind behind the Lancaster estate is Jessica's family home,
which has not been scrutinized. I concluded the call and turned to Sarah,
who had been concealed in plain sight all along. Notify every media source that published the report that I will be granting an exclusive interview tomorrow. It is time for a transformation. The narrative regarding the gala she inquired about is indeed still ongoing. Indeed. I have consulted the seating plan on my computer. Let's make sure the Lancasters and Jessica's family are present. Position the finest tables in the establishment in a location visible to all.
As darkness descended, I stood at the window of my guarded area. Tomorrow, I will commence disassembly while observing the city lights below. The Lancasters had established a meticulously constructed realm of deception.
But this evening I had one last call to make. I dialed a number I had committed to memory years prior but had never utilized.
After 3 rings, a familiar voice responded. Hello. Elizabeth. Yes. The genuine Elizabeth. Morrison.
I believe it is time for you to emerge from seclusion. A narrative requires your voice.
And you are the sole individual capable of conveying it. The components were aligning, shortly.
Justice will be served not only for my benefit but also for every individual the Lancasters had ever harmed. Initially,
I had a gala to organize.
And this time I would ensure it was an unforgettable affair for all. I will never forget the morning of the interview when I sat in my private office studying the materials with Elizabeth Morrison had fled after feigning her death and escaping her brutal marriage to Thomas's uncle, years of accumulating evidence against the Lancaster family,
which would aid in revealing decades of meticulous. The producer announced the orchestration of cons 5 minutes prior to going live. Altering my role, I selected the microphone for the interview in my father's former office, now my own, with the wall behind me adorned.
Photographs documenting our family's authentic ascent from a modest carpentry enterprise to a luxury resort empire allow them to observe the veracity of diligent effort and genuine achievement.
And we are live in 3, 2, 1. Mrs. Reynolds. Thank you for engaging with us today. The interviewer said. Recent claims have emerged regarding the origins of your.
How do you respond to the family's resort empire?
I smiled. Composed and collected. I appreciate your inquiry. Today,
I am not merely protecting my family's legacy, I am unveiling a long-standing conspiracy that has persisted for decades and has exploited countless affluent households nationwide for the subsequent hour. I presented the facts on the enigmatic demise of the actual Lancaster family in a house fire,
with Thomas's grandfather supposing involvement.
Charles Lancaster's identity is characterized by a series of marriages that concluded with dubious accidents or financial devastation. As I articulated, Sarah collaborated with media organizations to provide substantiated evidence for each assertion. Then came the revelation. I would like to introduce someone, I stated,
waving off camera as Elizabeth Morrison entered a frame. Very much alive. Was holding a huge folder. Hello,
Catherine, she said, addressing Thomas's mother directly via the camera.
Did you genuinely believe I would not retain evidence of your actions? The interviewer was momentarily rendered speechless by what my brother did. This was not included in the predetermined questions. But occasionally, the most memorable events are spontaneous.
Elizabeth's voice remained composed as she recounted her discovery. The husband's authentic character, his association with the fraudulent Lancaster family,
and how she escaped before they could permanently silence her.
Having spent years in hiding while observing their attempts to do the same, Elizabeth said with a smile that Sophie was distinct from the other families in the plan. Her father's calloused hands exemplify the true nature of accomplishment, which she perceives as their insincerity. It appears to be a sincere investment in individuals and communities rather than only superficial efforts. Social climbing and machinations. My phone vibrated softly with a message from the detective. The Wilson warrant has been executed. You were correct on the evidence at Jessica's family residence vault. Observed several ongoing arrests. As I maintained a neutral expression, Elizabeth continued her speech.
But inside, I felt the weight of years' worth of sins lift. They were ultimately revealed following Sarah's hurried entrance with updates.
The narrative was proliferating on social media. Thomas's mother had been apprehended while attempting to board a private aircraft. Jessica's parents were in custody,
but Thomas and Jessica were at large.
And the gala I inquired about. All preparations have been executed precisely as you stated. Sarah has confirmed this, including their specific seating configurations and further arrangements. I contemplated the intricate trap we devised for the gala will proceed as intended, but with a few essential changes. Thomas and Jessica could not forego one final effort to salvage their plans.
And when they did, Elizabeth joined me at the window, observing the sunset over the resort. For reasons that would make your father proud, she stated gently.
He endeavored to reveal them to you. I am aware that this is what contributed to his demise. I acknowledged this when contemplating the evidence. Detective Wilson discovered something, but he also imparted a vital lesson on how to engage in long-term strategy about the Lancasters. I believed they were patient,
waiting months or years to accomplish their schemes. I, however,
waited 5 years acquiring comprehensive knowledge about them,
collecting proof, and establishing a network of allies. And now we await the gala.
Thomas and Jessica are not aware yet. They had already RSVP'd to their own demise. My phone buzzed again. Rachel in a subsequent post. They fell for the ruse. I just overheard Jessica informing her friend of her intention to create a dramatic. The arrival at the gala indicates she possesses something that can annihilate you permanently. I grinned, contemplating that the surprises we had planned were ideal for that evening as I assessed the final gala as I prepared. A thought occurred to me. The Lancasters had devoted generations to mastering the art of destruction families through matrimony. How appropriate that their demise would occur at what they perceived to be their pinnacle. Triumph. Another celebration of a prosperous family, nevertheless. There was one more preceding it. I picked up my phone and phoned the governor's number. The gala security protocols must be updated due to important information about certain individuals. We had prepared the trap. All we needed to do was wait for our guests. It is an honor to arrive at the grand ballroom of my flagship resort, which shone with thousands of meticulously positioned small lights, established an ambience of ethereal elegance as I stood at the summit from the marble staircase. I observed the guests arriving in their finest evening attire. Every detail was impeccable. Security officers are present, serving champagne in old crystal and listening to a string quartet perform gently in the corner. Sarah mumbled at my elbow that the governor's staff is communicating with Detective Wilson. There was no indication of Thomas or Jessica, nevertheless.
I nodded while adjusting my deep blue dress. My creation was reminiscent of the ocean at dawn. As my father used to say, the optimal moment to make significant decisions is when the world is tranquil and brimming with potential.
Rachel just messaged Sarah assisted Jessica in preparing at their family estate dressed in white. She exuded a sense of irony that was not lost on me. Assisted in the dissolution of my marriage,
donning the hue of innocence at its funeral.
The governor appeared with his security detail, subtly indicating his astonishment upon my presentation of proof on the land. PS.
Had been exploiting political connections for years by utilizing information obtained from their victims to exert influence.
He inquired casually if all policy decisions were in place. As I greeted him, I responded in a manner that mirrored his tone while awaiting our esteemed guests.
The ballroom gradually filled, and I noticed Elizabeth Morrison,
artfully concealed with a silver wig and understated makeup, positioned herself at the entryway. She had insisted upon being present tonight to witness the family that nearly devastated her finally confront justice at exactly 9:00 a.m. A buzz spread through the gathering. Thomas and Jessica had arrived.
And she was really present. She donned a white luxury gown likely exceeding the value of most automobiles as Thomas stood beside her in a tuxedo, exuding every aspect of the aristocrat he feigned to be. They halted at the entryway,
evidently anticipating the establishment of a.
Instead, they encountered calculated disinterest from the other guests. The individuals, having been meticulously briefed,
persisted in their discussions without recognizing the newcomers,
which was the worst scenario response for individuals who excelled in social manipulation, being considered inconsequential. As Rachel navigated through the crowd,
she noticed Jessica tightly gripping her evening bag,
included what they perceived as their decisive evidence, materials they believed would substantiate that my father's enterprise was founded on fraud. They are approaching the governor, Sarah whispered. Precisely on time.
I responded by maneuvering into position and intercepted them just as they approached the governor's group.
Thomas and Jessica, it was delightful to see both of you, I remarked, my voice projecting sufficiently to attract the attention of surrounding guests.
Sophie. Thomas exhibited his rehearsed smile,
acknowledging the considerable assembly Jessica had orchestrated. Albeit possibly for a little duration, she moved forward, her smile as cutting as a sword. And we believed it was time for everyone to learn the truth about the source of the funds in the Reynolds empire. Truth. What an exceptional concept. I turned to address the room, my voice resonant and clear. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen,
may I kindly request your attention as the music subsides. All attention has shifted to us. Many of you have perused recent narratives on my family's enterprise. I began tonight by committing to revealing the Reynolds and Lancaster family's true story.
I glanced at Jessica,
whose smile had become fixed in the manner of the Bennett family. Thomas attempted to seize my arm but encountered an obstruction in his trajectory, confronted by two security guards who appeared unexpectedly.
I persisted. This evening a celebration signifies both a conclusion and a commencement. I acknowledged Sarah, who initiated the concealed screens in the ballroom. Allow me to illustrate my point. The displays were illuminated,
showcasing decades of proof, including images and documents. The financial records were significant, But the most incriminating evidence was the video that Jessica's father filmed just hours prior, confessing everything to Detective Wilson.
Jessica muttered, her face paling. That's not what he would do. Your father was exceedingly cooperative once we discovered the concealed chamber of your family estate. I remarked gently. The one containing trophies from each family you have annihilated. Including my father's. Thomas rushed forward. Yet he never reached me. The governor's security crew acted with seasoned efficiency, subduing him as Detective Wilson emerged from the throng, badge in hand. Addressing Thomas Lancaster. Should I state? Thomas Whitmore.
You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and accessory to murder as Thomas and Jessica were led away. I felt no apprehension over the extensive list of additional accusations we would examine at the station. Triumph does not bring joy but rather a profound sense of justice that the visitors are finally realizing.
Erupted into expressions of concern and exclamations, however.
I scarcely registered them. My gaze was riveted on the antiquated portrait of my father now projected on the screens. His kind face smiling down at the empire he has constructed through honest labor and authenticity.
Vision. Yet the night was not concluded, in fact.
It was poised to become even more an unforeseen development that would contest all my prior beliefs of my family's history as the cops guided while Thomas and Jessica were absent.
Elizabeth Morrison approached me.
Clutching a weathered leather portfolio that I had never encountered before, her hands trembled slightly as she extended it. Your father entrusted this to me for safekeeping, she stated calmly.
He made me.
There's vital information about your situation that I vowed to share with you only after the Lancasters were revealed. My mother passed away when I was too little to recall her. Or so I have always believed. My father rarely mentioned her. And the few photographs I own show her as a beautiful woman with gentle eyes with a pleasant grin. Elizabeth surveyed the lively gathering of gala-goers.
Noting her mother's absence. Accompany me to my private office, where Sarah awaited beside Detective Wilson. Her expression was solemn as she placed a laptop on my desk.
Stating that we discovered something further in the Bennett residence. I trembled when I opened the portfolio that belonged to Elizabeth regarding your mother's accident. Inside,
I found dozens of letters,
all composed in my mother's exquisite handwriting. The handwriting was dated after her alleged demise.
She is living. I murmured. She could scarcely believe it. She was collaborating with your father to unveil the Lancasters. Elizabeth elucidated, uncovered their association with other dubious fatalities of notable families. But upon realizing she was investigating, they issued threats against her.
Detective Wilson stated she planned her own disappearance to prevent her father's death after the disaster. I concealed myself to safeguard both of you. I retreated into my chair, surrounded by letters sprawled on my desk for all these years.
My father understood the necessity to uphold the deception to ensure your mutual safety, Elizabeth stated softly. Yet he persistently endeavored to dismantle those individuals who abducted her from you. That is the reason they eliminated him when he approached too closely. Sarah advanced,
holding a tablet. The evidence uncovered tonight extends beyond the Lancasters and the Bennetts. It reveals an entire network. Families are participating in analogous initiatives nationwide. Your mother has been assisting other victims in their escape. Constructing cases against these individuals has occupied my thoughts. Recalling various details, my thoughts have been consumed by nuanced recollections from my youth.
Enigmatic phone calls my father received in his study,
and unforeseen excursions for which he never adequately explained the rationale behind his instruction to always maintain a contingency plan. Where is she now?
I inquired.
My voice scarcely audible. Detective Wilson methodically wrote on her laptop before pivoting it towards me. The video call connected,
revealing her to be older than in the photographs.
Yet with the same kind eyes I recalled photographs of my mother. Sophie, revealed her voice trembling as she referred to me as her courageous and exceptional daughter. I have observed you from a distance throughout the years,
witnessing your transformation into an extraordinary woman.
My love for you has remained unwavering. I ceased to hope for this day.
Tears cascading down my cheeks as I touched the screen. Mother, she assured me that she would address all of my numerous inquiries. Sophie,
I am returning home now that it is safe and you have completed what your father and I initiated. A knock at the door halted us.
Sarah responded with a worried expression on Rachel's face. I apologize for the interruption, but Jessica stated that there is something you need to see. She left something on her cell phone. which the police have recently discovered it is a video confession. But it does not pertain to our expectations, rather. It concerns another family targeting an individual at the gala tonight. I reflected on my mother's image displayed on the screen. And Sarah responded with a worried expression on Rachel's face. With a kind smile. She said,
"Accomplish what is necessary, I will be here upon your completion."
We possess ample time. As I prepared to depart,
I observed an additional item within the portfolio. I placed a note. Written in my father's handwriting and dated just days before his death.
Into my evening bag.
The content may be postponed till the final matter was resolved.
As I walked back into the ballroom, I experienced the truth about my mother. Albeit different, stronger, and more comprehensive.
Had not erased the years of sorrow but had provided them with meaning. This signifies that every stage of my life has culminated in this moment of living up to my parents' legacy. Commenced.
Yet there remained one additional family to rescue and one more truth to reveal based on Rachel's face.
Time was critical. Inform me of whatever I need to know. As we rushed into the corridor, I inquired about their aim. Rachel's response caused me to halt abruptly. This was not merely another affluent family at peril. This situation was significantly more profound and had the potential to alter our entire perspective. We were aware of the Lancaster operation.
And amidst the throng in the ballroom, their next victim was dancing obliviously, unaware of their proximity to annihilation.
The footage on Jessica's phone disclosed their subsequent target with stark clarity. The young woman dancing smoothly across the floor was Amanda Brown, daughter of one of Asia's prominent figures. The most prestigious hotel for years. She was not merely affluent but poised to take leadership of a hotel group that would have. Rachel elucidated that the Lancasters achieved their highest score to date while participating in a game that was considerably lengthier than previously understood. While observing Amanda laugh with her pals, it became evident that this was really a rehearsal for Jessica's younger brother. They were prepared to pursue Amanda, intending to disclose their serendipitous encounter at tonight's gala. I experienced a sense of unease run down my spine. Where is her brother now?
The police have just apprehended him at the airport, Detective Wilson stated.
Joining us, he was attempting to escape the country. We discovered a comprehensive dossier on the Brown family in his possession. With extensive information, Amanda's preferred flowers reminded me of my own experiences in relation to my father's medical history, how extensively Thomas had analyzed me prior to our fortuitous initial encounter. We must inform her it has already been accomplished. The investigator assured me that her father's security team has been informed and is discreetly relocating the entire family to where Amanda was gently brought from the ballroom to a secure spot.
Her bright smile remaining unwavering as she bid farewell to her friends. She was unaware of how near she was to losing everything, just as I had been oblivious to all years ago. With the final prospective victim secure, I could finally address my father's letter. My hands quivered as I shattered the seal. My beloved Sophie, if you are perusing this, then you have accomplished what your mother and I could not. You have unveiled the truth of the Lancasters. I am aware of the toll it has taken. Intense is the anguish of betrayal,
accompanied by years of uncertainty and being alone. I long for what could have been. I saved you from all of it.
Yet you have consistently demonstrated greater strength than I acknowledged, akin to your mother. You possess a resilient core underneath your tender heart.
I departed from the resort empire without disclosing the complete truth.
As I was aware of you, you would either discover your own happiness with Thomas if he differs from his family,
or you would possess sufficient strength. Your mother did not perish in that accident, Sophie. She opted to vanish for your protection. Every significant business choice I made regarding the building of our resort empire was an element of a comprehensive strategy to establish a secure network for victims of familial abuse. Akin to the Lancasters, each resort contains a concealed aspect, a protocol known exclusively to a limited number of staff members designed to safeguard and evacuate individuals in peril. Constitutes the true legacy I bequeath. It is not the hotels or the wealth. It is this network of safety and justice that defines you. The mother has been managing it covertly for many years. Now it is time for both of you to emerge into the open. I regret that I will not be present for your reunion. Please understand that all my actions were motivated by love for you and your mother. The evidence you discovered indicates that the allies were consistently present,
awaiting your readiness.
Be joyful,
my dear. Be strong and free, my darling. With all my love, Dad. Tears obscured my vision as a having completed the reading, Sarah discreetly presented me with a tissue. as Mrs. Reynolds, a staff member, observed upon arriving at the door. I was informed that someone was present to see me. I did not need to inquire further, I sensed it in my heart. Mother stood in the doorway, resembling her appearance from the video call, yet astonishingly tangible for a time. We simply gazed at one another.
2 decades of estrangement suspended between us. She then extended her arms,
and I ran to her like a young girl,
inhaling her familiar fragrance, jasmine and home.
"My Sophie," she whispered, embracing me tightly.
My courageous and brilliant girl. Later that night,
well after the final gala guests had left, my mother and I occupied my father's former office, which is now our office. The future of the resort empire is currently under consideration.
But with a new direction, Elizabeth Morrison would assist us in identifying and aiding other victims of similar schemes involving Thomas and Jessica. The entire network would be held accountable, nonetheless.
Their demise marked not the conclusion of my narrative, but the inception of something new. My mother inquired, examining the plans we had devised. "What do you think,
Sophie?
Are you prepared for this?" In this new chapter, I surveyed the workplace,
observing the photograph of my father on the wall amidst the dazzling lights of the resort. Below is the remarkable woman beside me who has sacrificed all to safeguard me. I contemplated the numerous families we could assist and the lives we could preserve.
"Indeed,"
I affirmed while grasping her palm tightly. Dawn illuminated the Caribbean, adorning the sky with hues of optimism. I experienced genuine tranquility for the first time in years. The carpenter's daughter had not only safeguarded her father's legacy but had also modified it. She had transformed into something beyond anyone's imagination.
And this time, I wasn't alone.